Previously on Break the Cycles. It has been 10,000 miles and 3 oil changes. I'm about to leave Washington State and head south on Coastal Highway 1. I found out right away that couch surfing is not easy on the West Coast, but luckily, there are plenty of campsites compared to Maryland. As I left the Seattle area and headed south, I had to cross over the Columbia River again before entering Oregon. I remember coming on this road on the southern end in the 2013 trip, and the weather was just absolutely terrible. But luckily, this time I went south, the weather was fantastic. So soon after I crossed over, I met an older couple that had a BMW Airhead. On the side of the road, their bike had stopped running, and they're trying to figure out what was wrong. Having owned one of these as my first bike, and also being a pseudo mechanic, I try to, stop and help them. But unfortunately, when we pull all the relays and the fuses out, all the relays and fuses were like covered in like green, like corrosion goo. So there was no fixing that, at least not like on the side of the road without spares. So by the time I left, after helping them, it was getting pretty dark. And I rode to the campsite area. I found an iOverlander. It had like 17 campsites. It's kind of like semi out of the way. But I figure, I'll have at least one campsite, right? It's not the weekend or anything, just like a regular weekday. Little did I know. So, my campsite, I got there late, and it turns out that the road got washed out. And instead of 17 sites, there was only 4. So, obviously, it's completely booked. And I am now out in the middle of nowhere. Hopefully I can get some gas first. And then I have to figure out where the hell I'm going. Yeah, I try to help this couple out with their BMW motorcycle, and we couldn't get it started. But they offered me to go stay with them if I couldn't find a camp. And I have no recollection where they told me that they're going to be. So I try to message them, and so right now I'm just kind of waiting, hoping that they'll respond to me. Yeah. Maybe I'll go get gas first. It's like 5 miles away. Yeah. So I got gas and no response. Still don't know where I'm going. So the tricky part here is that we never actually exchange or officially exchange contact information. The couple kind of just followed me on Instagram. I didn't even follow them back. So when I said I contacted them, I sent them a message on IG. So they had to actually like approve and then so they can respond to me. So I was a total shot in the dark, literally. But luckily they did respond to me after like an hour, and I couch surfed successfully with them. Next morning, I left. I didn't know that Cannon Beach was literally where Haystack Rock is, which one of the spots I wanted to see anyways. So I spent a few hours in the morning over there and then head south on Highway 1 afterwards. The Oregon section of the Highway 1 is not nearly as famous as the SoCal, but it's still a wonderful road with a lot of cliff sides. But it's not always on the cliff side, so it's kind of like goes in and out most of the time. But there's a lot of tunnels, and there's plenty of ocean views. As I made my way down the coast, it became really foggy, so I had to slow down quite a bit because, well, I couldn't see very well. And because of that, I didn't make a lot of miles, and before I know it, I had to start looking for campsites. And I stopped for the day and found this place just off the Highway 1, and it looked really good online. I was like, well, it's like kind of like a Forest Service road, and it's like there's multiple campsites along the way. But when I got there, man, it's more like an OHV trail because the sand was ridiculous. I mean, it was like half a foot to a foot of sand in a lot of spots, and it was so deep in the sand. And like at that point, I was like, man, I wish I had those really crappy knobby tires that I didn't really want to ride on the highway, those Midas E09s. But and I could like ride faster because like you ride faster on the sand and you kind of keep the front up and then you kind of trek along. but with all the gear in the back, I I didn't want to like drop my bike and like or like start wiggling and I can't control it and then like dump it in the sand. So I ended up like riding super slow to the campsite, and it wasn't even the best campsite. Like it was like the second campsite that came up. The first one was like really bad. Like there wasn't like a really good flat spot for me to put a tent, so I was like, no, this is not good. But then the second one came up and it was like fully exposed, like all the cars would drive by. But I was looking at it, I was like, I'm not gonna ride it anymore. I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna put a tent here and call it done. But luckily, nothing happened, and I was able to get in and get out the next day. And then I continued down the Highway Coast. So that day, the main attraction is, of course, the Redwood Forest. And I've always wanted to see the Redwood Forest. I've never seen this before. And as I come across on Northern California, as I cross over from Oregon, I see this overlook. This is before the Redwood Forest. I see this overlook, and the view was just absolutely surreal. And I was like, okay, I gotta stop. So I pulled over, I pulled out my camera, took a few photos, and another motorcyclist pulled up. This is where I met Leroy. Now, me and Leroy chatted a little bit. We hit it off really well, maybe like 4 or 5 minutes. And then I told him about my trip. We exchanged contact info. And then he told me to give him a call when I'm down in Orange County, that I can stay with him. Mind you, I don't know him. It was just a few minutes chat with him. And he's not on any platform. I don't know any reviews. But there's a lot of times where like you interact with people and you just have this like feeling like, yo, this guy is really cool. Like this is something I'll follow up. Like you just like have this sense of like, oh, this is gonna work out really well. But I'll tell you what happened when I get to Orange County. All right. So as I parted with Leroy, I went down the main attraction of the day, which is the Redwood Forest, and man, it did not disappoint. The Redwood Forest is a forest range that runs along the entire California northern coast. Thousands-year-old trees with base wider than most carts, and like the height, like you just look and you look up, it looks so surreal. Like you feel like you're in a movie. And there's so many sections, like the whole northern side. There are like so many places that you can go. It was surprisingly empty. It was like no tourists, and I was like so excited. Like everywhere I go, there was no tourists, and I was like wondering, like, did they close the park? And I'm like here illegally, but apparently it wasn't very busy, and it was a weekday, of course, but it wasn't very busy. So there were a lot of trails to ride, and there was a lot of trails to hike. I did a little bit of hiking, and then but I rode most of the areas. I've never seen these trees like this size, this massive, with this much density. Like, yeah, I see one big tree before, but not like look over and it's just like a massive forest, like incomprehensible like size, and it's just never ending like views of just like giant trees everywhere. And then there's like a swamp section too that I went to, and the trees were even bigger. Like it was crazy. And then the ones that are not in the swamp are like super green. The ones in the swamp are kind of grayish, but man, they were massive. This is one of my favorite photos. It gives you kind of a sense of the size of the tree, and also the one, of course, the one where I'm like in the tree. And I really loved that photo. It was just mind-boggling. So I didn't really want to leave, so I ended up spending a ton of time there. And by the time I left, it was like, sun's going down, and I had to find a camp spot really quickly. And I found this camp spot on the side of the road. It was on Overlander, but it was not a really great camp spot because when I got to the entrance point, I see that you have to like ride in and then you go down this ditch. And this thing must have been like a 15-foot drop at like 65-degree angle, and then you just have to like coast it down. I mean, there's a large enough landing pad in the bottom that you're not like having to like do like a quick turn, but like it was a steep hill down, and I was like, I'm already tired and whatnot, but I managed to go down without dumping the bike. The following day, I headed towards the more famous part of the California Highway 1, and these sections, well, they're all on the cliffside. Beautiful paved roads, and it was just one vista after the other. And it's really the combination of just breeze of the ocean smell and the perfectly manicured road and just the cliffside sweepers that kind of goes on for like hours. It was such a great riding day. And then I ended the day at my cousin's place in Newark. I haven't seen her for like 15 years. And then the next day, I visited another cousin I haven't seen. This one I haven't seen for like 25 years in Manteca. And then after that, I headed south to visit one of my aunt who I have not seen for 20 years. So on my way down, I stopped and visited a student from the European trip. Again, same European trip as the one in Idaho. And visited her, took some photos, and then I arrived in Visalia. Along the way, I try to do lane splitting because as I get closer and closer to the city, the traffic is getting like worse and worse. And like as I sit there like baking in the sun, I was like, nah, I'm just gonna start doing lane splitting. Back on the East Coast, at least in Maryland, it was illegal, and there's a lot of crazy people where like they try to open the door to bump you if you try to do lane splitting, or they try to cut you off to like so that you can't like cross. But over here in Cali, of course, is legal, so like nobody gives a crap. And as I started practicing lane splitting, I just do it more and more and more. So it was fun. Um, the following day, I rode up to see the great sequoia tree. My aunt's house is literally like just on the outskirts of it. It's like the same main road when you come out of her community, and you just take that road all the way down like 30 minutes, and then you hit the national park. So this place was an absolute tourist nightmare. There was only like one road going up, and there was RVs, there was, tons of cars, big tour buses. It was a disaster. I had to stop so many times because I was just sitting there like cooking, not just from the sun, but from like the heat of my bike because I was just sitting there and like barely moving. It was a very miserable ride, but I did make it, and I saw the General Sherman tree, and then I followed up that by seeing the Morro Rock and then hiking up the Morro Rock. It was pretty cool. It wasn't like wow, but it was pretty neat. And then I continued north and tried to do a loop and go back, and I got to Kings Canyon National Park. And that was a pretty awesome experience. They have a huge network of Forest Service roads that you can ride. The roads that I took aren't particularly difficult, but the rides were fantastic. It was just endless roads that you can ride, and you could just kind of get lost in there for a whole day. And it's great. I ended up like spending like 3 hours there riding around until I ran out of water, and then I was like, okay, I gotta turn around. I gotta go back. But the roads are great. I mean, I really enjoy Kings Canyon. Next time, I take you into an abandoned mine and tell you about my adventures in Orange County.